What would you do if your husband handed you a thick envelope, his hands shaking, and told you to leave your own home? How did a few harmless texts and selfies to the pool guy end with me outside, suitcase in hand, and carrying a child that may not even be my husband's? I thought I was in control, until the day the legal documents arrived. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Seraphina, and this is how I lost everything. The morning sun streamed through our kitchen windows as I poured Graham's coffee into his favorite mug, the one our 6-year-old daughter Chloe had painted for Father's Day. He sat at the breakfast table, already dressed in his crisp white shirt and navy tie, scrolling through emails on his phone. The same routine we'd followed for 8 years of marriage. "Dylan's coming by today to clean the pool," I mentioned casually, buttering Chloe's toast. "He said the filter needs replacing." Graham looked up briefly. "Again? Didn't he just replace something last month?" "Pool maintenance is complicated," I said, avoiding his eyes. "You wouldn't understand." The truth was, I didn't understand it either. But Dylan Reyes had such a charming way of explaining things, with his easy smile and those strong hands that gestured as he talked. At 28, he had an energy that made me feel alive again, something I hadn't felt in years. "Mommy, why do you smile when you talk about the pool man?" Chloe asked innocently, syrup dripping from her fork. My cheeks flushed. "Don't be silly, sweetheart. I smile about lots of things." Graham's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He'd been doing that more often lately, especially when Dylan's name came up. My husband was a methodical man, an accountant who noticed patterns and inconsistencies. It was what made him good at his job, but lately, it made me feel like I was under a microscope. "I'll be late tonight," Graham said, standing to kiss Chloe's forehead. "Big client presentation tomorrow." "Of course you will," I muttered. "When aren't you late these days?" He paused at the kitchen doorway. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, Graham. Just nothing." I turned away, focusing on wiping down the counter that was already clean. After he left, I felt my phone buzz. A text from Dylan. "See you around 2. Can't wait to dive into that project." The winky emoji made my stomach flutter in a way that felt both thrilling and wrong. I quickly deleted the message, a habit I developed over the past few weeks. Later that afternoon, I watched from the kitchen window as Dylan worked. He'd removed his shirt in the heat, and I found myself staring at the way his muscles moved as he skimmed leaves from the water. When he caught me looking, he flashed that devastating smile and waved. My phone rang, making me jump. It was Marilyn, Graham's mother. "Hello, dear." Her voice was cooler than usual. "I was calling to see if you needed me to pick up Chloe from school today." "No, I've got it covered. Why?" "Well, Graham mentioned you've been distracted lately. I just wanted to make sure everything's all right." The judgment in her tone was unmistakable. Marilyn had never been my biggest fan, but lately, her disapproval felt more pointed. "Everything's fine, Marilyn. Graham worries too much." "Does he? I've known my son for 36 years, Seraphina. He doesn't worry without reason." After hanging up, I felt irritated. Why was everyone treating me like I was doing something wrong? So what if I enjoyed Dylan's company? So what if his attention made me feel appreciated in a way Graham's hadn't for months? That evening, Graham came home to find me in an unusually good mood. I'd made his favorite dinner, pot roast with all the fixings, and even put on the blue dress he used to compliment. "This is nice," he said cautiously, as if waiting for the catch. "Can't a wife make a special dinner for her husband?" I asked, serving him a generous portion. "Of course, it's just unexpected." As we ate, Chloe chattered about her day at school, but I noticed Graham watching me with those careful accountant eyes. When my phone buzzed during dessert, I instinctively grabbed it. "Who's texting so late?" Graham asked. "Just my sister Joanna," I lied smoothly, not even looking at the message. You know how she is. But later, as I loaded the dishwasher, I snuck a peek. Dylan had sent a photo of the sunset from his apartment balcony with the caption, "Wish you were here to see this with me." My heart raced as I quickly deleted it, but when I turned around, Chloe was standing in the doorway. "Mummy, why does Daddy look so sad at dinner lately?" The innocent question hit me like a punch to the gut. "What do you mean, baby?" He gets this look, like when I broke his favorite coffee mug, but sadder. I knelt down to her level, smoothing her dark hair. "Daddy's just stressed about work, sweetheart. Grown-ups have complicated feelings sometimes." But as I tucked her into bed that night, Chloe's words echoed in my mind. When had Graham started looking sad? And more importantly, when had I stopped caring enough to notice? The next few weeks blurred together in a haze of secret messages and stolen glances. Dylan had started texting me daily, nothing overtly inappropriate, just friendly check-ins that gradually became more personal. He asked about my day, remembered details about Chloe's school events, and made me laugh with funny observations about his other clients. "You're different from the other housewives," he texted one morning while I sat at my desk at the medical clinic where I worked as a receptionist. "You actually listen when I talk." The compliment warmed me more than it should have. Graham used to say things like that back when we were dating. Now our conversations rarely went beyond logistics. Who was picking up Chloe? What bills needed paying? Whose turn it was to buy groceries? "What makes you think I'm different?" I texted back, glancing around to make sure Dr. Peterson wasn't watching. "You have this spark in your eyes, like you're meant for more than suburban mum life." I stared at the message, my heart pounding. Dylan saw something in me that I'd forgotten existed. The woman I used to be before marriage and motherhood consumed my identity. "Meet me for coffee," he suggested. "I know a quiet place downtown." I hesitated for only a moment before typing, "When?" The cafe Dylan chose was small and dimly lit, tucked away in a part of town where I was unlikely to run into anyone I knew. He was already there when I arrived, looking impossibly handsome in a fitted t-shirt and jeans. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said, standing to pull out my chair. I almost didn't. The honesty surprised me. We talked for 2 hours. Dylan told me about his dreams of starting his own pool maintenance company, maybe expanding into landscaping. He asked about my life before marriage, seemed genuinely interested in my abandoned plans to become a nurse. "What stopped you?" he asked, leaning forward intently. "Graham thought it would be too stressful with Chloe. He said we didn't need the money, that I should focus on being a mother." "And what did you think?" The question caught me off guard. When was the last time someone had asked what I thought about my own life? I don't remember anyone asking. Dylan reached across the table and briefly touched my hand. "That's a shame. You're too smart and beautiful to just fade into the background." I pulled my hand away, but the warmth of his touch lingered. "I should go. Chloe gets out of school soon." "Of course, but Seraphina." He smiled that devastating smile. "I'm glad we did this." Driving home, I felt more alive than I had in months. My phone buzzed at a red light. Another message from Dylan. "You looked beautiful today. That blue sweater brings out your eyes." I found myself smiling as I typed back, "You're sweet." "I mean it. You should smile more. Has anyone ever told you that you light up when you laugh?" The compliments continued over the following days. Dylan began asking for photos, innocent at first. A picture of the coffee I was drinking, a selfie from my lunch break. Then the requests became more specific. "Show me what you're wearing today," he texted one afternoon. I was home alone, having taken a sick day from work. Graham was at the office, Chloe at school. I looked at myself in the bedroom mirror, yoga pants and an old college sweatshirt. Hardly glamorous, but something made me change into my new sundress, the yellow one Graham had barely noticed when I wore it to dinner last week. I applied lipstick and took a selfie, making sure the lighting was flattering. Dylan's response was immediate. "Gorgeous." You should wear yellow more often. The validation was intoxicating. When was the last time Graham had called me gorgeous? When was the last time he'd noticed what I was wearing at all? Send me one from by the pool, Dylan suggested. I want to see my handiwork in the background. This felt like crossing a line, but the rational part of my brain was being drowned out by the rush of feeling desired. I changed into my navy blue swimsuit, the one that flattered my figure, and posed by the pool's edge. The photo was tasteful, I told myself. Nothing I wouldn't post on social media, but as I hit send, my hands were shaking. Perfect, Dylan replied. You're absolutely perfect. I was still staring at my phone when I heard Graham's car in the driveway. Panic shot through me as I quickly deleted the conversation and ran inside to change back into my casual clothes. You're home early, I said breathlessly as he walked through the front door. Finished the Peterson account ahead of schedule. He looked at me strangely. Why are you out of breath? And why is your hair wet? I was cleaning the pool area. You know how messy it gets. Graham nodded slowly, but his eyes were calculating. Where's your navy swimsuit? I was going to throw in a load of darks. My blood turned to ice. My swimsuit? The navy one. I saw it in the hamper yesterday, but it's not there now. I washed it separately. It's hanging in the laundry room. Another lie, so smooth it scared me. The swimsuit was actually still damp, hidden in my closet where I'd hastily shoved it. That night at dinner, Graham was quieter than usual. He answered Chloe's questions about his day with distracted half-responses, and I caught him staring at me several times with an expression I couldn't read. Everything okay? I asked as we got ready for bed. Fine, just thinking about work. But I noticed he'd started keeping his phone face down on his nightstand, and when it buzzed with a late-night message, he grabbed it quickly and stepped into the bathroom to read it. Two could play that game, I thought, as my own phone lit up with a goodnight text from Dylan. Sweet dreams, beautiful. Can't wait to see you again. I smiled as I typed back. Soon. What I didn't realize was that Graham had paused outside the bathroom door and seen the glow of my phone screen in the dark bedroom. What I didn't know was that he'd already started paying attention to patterns. The way I guarded my phone, the unexplained good moods, the subtle changes in my appearance and behavior. What I couldn't have imagined was that my methodical, patient husband was already building a case. The whispers at work started subtly. I'd catch conversations that stopped when I approached, see co-workers exchange glances when I checked my phone and smiled. It wasn't until my colleague Janet cornered me in the break room that I realized how obvious I'd become. So, she said, stirring sugar into her coffee with deliberate slowness, how's that handsome pool boy working out? My cheeks burned. I don't know what you mean. Come on, Seraphina. You light up like a Christmas tree every time he texts. And you've been checking your phone more than a teenager. Dylan is just our pool maintenance guy. It's a professional relationship. Janet raised an eyebrow. Professional. Right. Is that what we're calling it when you disappear for 2-hour lunches and come back glowing? The accusation hit too close to home. Dylan and I had met for coffee 3 more times, each meeting lasting longer than the last. Yesterday, he'd suggested we grab lunch at a restaurant across town, somewhere more private where we can really talk. You're imagining things, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. Am I? Because Dr. Peterson mentioned that your work has been slipping. You're distracted, making mistakes with patient files. Maybe you should think about what's really important here. That evening, I was determined to prove everyone wrong. I cooked Graham's favorite meal again, asked about his day, even suggested we watch a movie together after Chloe went to bed. But when my phone buzzed during our conversation, I couldn't help glancing at it. Who keeps texting you? Graham asked, his voice carefully neutral. Just work stuff. You know how Dr. Peterson gets about scheduling. At 9 p.m., I forced a laugh. Medical emergencies don't follow business hours. But Graham's expression told me he wasn't buying it. When I excused myself to use the bathroom, I quickly checked Dylan's message. Thinking about you. When can we meet again? My pulse quickened as I typed back, tomorrow. Same place. When I returned to the living room, Graham was holding the remote but not watching the TV. Instead, he was staring at a bank statement spread across the coffee table. Seraphina, can you explain this charge? $50 at Romano's Cafe last Tuesday. My mouth went dry. Romano's was where Dylan and I had met for lunch. I had lunch with Joanna. You know how expensive that place is. Joanna was in Chicago last week for her conference. I know because you complained about missing her call. The lie crumbled in my mouth. I meant, I had lunch alone. I deserved a treat after dealing with difficult patients all day. Graham nodded slowly, but I saw him make a note on his phone. Of course, you work hard. The next day, Dylan suggested something that made my heart race and my conscience scream in equal measure. I want to see you in that yellow dress again, he texted. The one from your photo. I can't. Graham might notice. He's at work, isn't he? Just for a few minutes. I'm thinking about you constantly, Seraphina. You're driving me crazy. The words were like a drug. When was the last time I'd driven anyone crazy? When was the last time someone had thought about me constantly? I found myself changing into the yellow dress, applying makeup, even putting on heels. I told myself I was just taking a photo, nothing more. But when Dylan suggested I pose by our bedroom window, where the afternoon light was perfect, I didn't hesitate. The photo was more revealing than I intended. The dress had ridden up slightly, and the angle emphasized my curves in a way that felt dangerous and thrilling. You're incredible, Dylan responded immediately. I wish I could tell you in person how beautiful you are. Maybe someday, I typed, then immediately regretted it. Is that a promise? Before I could respond, I heard Chloe's voice calling from downstairs. She was home from school early dismissal day that I'd completely forgotten about. Mommy, why are you all dressed up? I spun around to find my daughter in the bedroom doorway, her backpack still on her shoulders, looking confused. I was just trying on clothes, seeing what still fits. You look pretty. Are you and Daddy going somewhere special? The innocent question twisted in my chest. No, sweetheart, just playing dress up. That evening, Graham came home with flowers, a small bouquet of daisies, my favorite. For a moment, guilt overwhelmed me. What's the occasion? I asked, genuinely touched. No occasion. I realized I haven't bought you flowers in a while. Thought you might like them. They're beautiful. Thank you. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You're welcome. By the way, I'll be working from home tomorrow. Thought I'd spend more time with my family. Something in his tone made me uneasy. Graham rarely worked from home, claiming he was more productive at the office. That's nice. I'm sure Chloe will love having you here. What about you? Will you love having me here? The question felt loaded. Of course. Why would you ask that? No reason. Just want to make sure I'm not cramping your style. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Graham slept beside me. His breathing was steady, but I had the unsettling feeling that he wasn't really asleep. My phone was charging on the nightstand, and I desperately wanted to check if Dylan had messaged me, but I didn't dare reach for it. What I didn't know was that Graham had already seen more than I realized. What I couldn't have imagined was that my careful, methodical husband had been documenting everything. The unexplained charges, the lies about my whereabouts, the changes in my behavior. What I failed to understand was that while I thought I was getting away with everything, Graham was actually 3 steps ahead, quietly building a case that would soon bring my world crashing down. The family barbecue at our house was supposed to be a normal Saturday gathering. Graham's brother, Derek, and his wife, Lisa, brought their twin boys, while my sister Joanna drove down from Sacramento with her boyfriend Marcus. Even Marilyn came, though she'd been increasingly cold toward me lately. I'd spent the morning preparing, determined to show everyone that our family was perfectly normal and happy. But I couldn't stop checking my phone for messages from Dylan. who'd been unusually quiet for 2 days. "You seem distracted, sis," Joanna observed as we arranged potato salad and coleslaw on the patio table. "Everything okay?" "Just tired. Work's been crazy." "Graham looks tired too. You both seem tense." I glanced over at my husband, who was manning the grill with mechanical precision. He'd barely spoken to me all morning, responding to my attempts at conversation with polite but distant answers. "Marriage isn't always sunshine and rainbows," I said defensively. "We're going through a rough patch, but every couple does." "Is that what you call it?" Marilyn's voice cut through our conversation like ice. I turned to find my mother-in-law standing behind us, her arms crossed and her expression stern. "Excuse me?" I said, "Is that what you call sneaking around behind your husband's back? A rough patch?" The accusation hit me like a slap. "I don't know what you think you know, Marilyn, but I know that Derek saw you at Romano's cafe last week with a young man who definitely wasn't Graham. I know that you've been lying about where you spend your lunch breaks, and I know that my son has been losing sleep, wondering what happened to the woman he married." Derek appeared at his mother's side, his usual jovial expression replaced by something harder. "Seraphina, we need to talk." "I don't owe you an explanation about anything," I snapped, but my voice was shaking. "Maybe not us," Derek said quietly, "but you owe Graham one. That man has loved you for 8 years, worked his ass off to provide for you and Chloe, and this is how you repay him." "You don't understand the situation." "Then explain it," Marilyn interrupted. "Explain why you're texting another man. Explain why you're meeting him for secret lunches. Explain why you're lying to your family." The confrontation was drawing attention. Lisa was trying to distract the children, while Marcus looked uncomfortable, and Joanna stepped protectively closer to me. "Back off," Joanna said firmly. "You're attacking my sister based on gossip and assumptions." "Are they assumptions?" Derek challenged. "Seraphina, look me in the eye and tell me you haven't been having an affair." "I haven't been having an affair." The words came out too loud, too defensive. "Dylan is just a friend. We talk sometimes. That's not a crime." "Dylan?" Marilyn's eyes widened. "The pool boy? You're having an affair with the pool boy." "I'm not having an affair." But even as I said it, I knew how it sounded, how it looked. Graham appeared beside the grill, his face pale but controlled. "Kids, why don't you go inside and wash up for lunch?" Chloe looked between the adults, sensing the tension even if she didn't understand it. "Daddy, why is everyone yelling?" "They're just having a disagreement, sweetheart. Go on inside." Once the children were gone, Graham set down his grilling tongs and faced me directly. "Is it true?" he asked quietly. "Have you been meeting with Dylan?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Everyone was staring at me, waiting for an answer. I could lie again, but the evidence was mounting, and the expressions around me suggested they already knew the truth. "We've had coffee a few times," I admitted. "As friends, nothing more." "Friends," Graham repeated slowly. "Friends who meet in secret. Friends you lie to your husband about." "You're never here." The words exploded out of me. "You work constantly. You barely talk to me. You act like I'm just part of the furniture. Dylan listens to me. He makes me feel like I matter." "So this is my fault?" Graham's voice was dangerously quiet. "I'm not saying it's your fault, but you can't ignore your wife for months and then act surprised when she seeks attention elsewhere." The silence that followed was deafening. Derek shook his head in disgust, while Marilyn looked like she wanted to slap me. Even Joanna seemed taken aback by my outburst. "Attention," Graham said finally. "Is that what you call it?" He pulled out his phone and showed me the screen. It was a photo, one I recognized with horror. The picture I'd sent Dylan of myself in the yellow dress, somehow displayed on Graham's phone. "Where did you get that?" I whispered. "Does it matter? The question is, do you call sending photos like this to another man seeking attention?" My world tilted. How had Graham gotten that photo? Had Dylan shown it to someone? Had someone hacked my phone? "Graham, I can explain." Can you explain why my wife is sending provocative photos to a 28-year-old pool cleaner? Can you explain why you've been lying to me for weeks? Can you explain why our 6-year-old daughter asked me yesterday why Mommy doesn't love Daddy anymore? The last revelation hit me like a physical blow. Chloe said what? She asked me why you don't love me anymore, because apparently even a 6-year-old can see what I've been trying to deny. Tears were streaming down my face now, but I could see that sympathy was in short supply. Derek had his arm around Graham's shoulders, while Marilyn was shaking her head in disappointment. I do love you, I said desperately. This thing with Dylan, it doesn't mean anything. It was just harmless flirting. Harmless? Graham's laugh was bitter. Seraphina, there's nothing harmless about betraying your family. There's nothing harmless about lying to your husband and exposing our private business to a stranger. He's not a stranger. He's a 28-year-old kid who cleans pools for a living. What exactly did you think was going to happen? That he'd sweep you away from your suburban life and make all your dreams come true? The cruelty in Graham's voice was unlike anything I'd ever heard from him. But what scared me more was that he was right. What had I thought was going to happen? I think you should leave, Marilyn said coldly. This is a family gathering, and frankly, I'm not sure you qualify as family anymore. She's my sister, Joanna protested, and you people are being incredibly cruel. Cruel? Derek turned on her. What's cruel is cheating on your husband and lying to your child. What's cruel is making Graham question his own sanity while his wife plays house with the pool boy. That's enough, Graham said quietly. Everyone just... stop. He looked at me with an expression that broke my heart. Not anger anymore, but something worse. Disappointment, resignation. We'll talk later, he said, when we're alone. As the family gathering dissolved into awkward small talk and early departures, I caught Chloe watching from the kitchen window. Her small face was pressed against the glass, and she looked confused and scared. What had I done to my family? 3 weeks after the disastrous barbecue, I was sitting in Dr. Peterson's office, staring at a pregnancy test with 2 pink lines. My hands were shaking as the reality sank in. I was carrying a child, and I had no idea who the father was. The timing was catastrophic. Graham and I had barely spoken since the confrontation, communicating only about Chloe's needs and household logistics. He'd moved into the guest bedroom and started staying late at work again, but now it felt less like dedication and more like avoidance. Dylan had finally responded to my messages after days of silence, but his tone had changed completely. This is getting too complicated, he'd texted. Maybe we should cool things off for a while. Cool things off, I'd responded. After everything we've shared. Look, you're married with a kid. I'm not looking for that kind of drama in my life. The casual dismissal had stung worse than Graham's anger. At least my husband's reaction came from a place of hurt and love. Dylan's indifference made me feel used and foolish. Now, staring at the pregnancy test, I felt utterly alone. Graham and I had been intimate exactly twice in the past 2 months, perfunctory encounters that felt more like obligation than passion. But I'd also been with Dylan once, 3 weeks ago, when our coffee date had escalated into something I'd immediately regretted. I drove home in a daze, the test hidden in my purse like evidence of a crime. Chloe was at school, and Graham was at work, leaving me alone with my panic and guilt. My phone rang. Joanna, the only family member still speaking to me regularly. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "I'm pregnant," I blurted out. The silence stretched for so long I thought the call had dropped. "Joanna?" "Jesus, Seraphina, please tell me it's Graham's." I don't know." Another long pause. "Oh, honey, what are you going to do?" "I don't know that either." That evening I cooked dinner with unusual care, trying to work up the courage to tell Graham. He came home at his usual time, kissed Chloe hello, and nodded politely at me before retreating to his home office. After Chloe went to bed, I knocked on his office door. "Come in," he said without looking up from his computer. "Graham, we need to talk." "About what? Your pool boy?" because I think we've covered that topic pretty thoroughly. I'm pregnant. His fingers froze over the keyboard. For a long moment, the only sound was the hum of his computer fan. Pregnant, he repeated slowly. Yes. He turned in his chair to face me, his expression unreadable. And you're telling me this because... The question cut deep. Because you're my husband. Because this could be your child. Could be. He stood up, walking to the window that overlooked our backyard pool. That's an interesting choice of words. Graham, when? He asked quietly. When what? When did you sleep with him? The directness of the question made me flinch. It only happened once. It was a mistake. When? 3 weeks ago. But Graham, we were intimate around that time too. The baby could be yours. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. So I have a 50-50 chance of raising another man's child. Those are fantastic odds. It's not like that. What is it like, Seraphina? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like my wife got pregnant by her lover and now wants me to play daddy. He's not my lover. The protest sounded weak even to me. Graham turned from the window, and I saw something in his eyes that terrified me. Not anger, but a cold calculation I'd never seen before. Have you told him? Yes. And what did he say? I couldn't meet his eyes. He said things were getting too complicated. Ah, so Prince Charming doesn't want to play house after all. The next few days passed in a blur of tension and silence. Graham was polite but distant, treating me like a house guest he barely tolerated. Chloe sensed the change and began clinging to her father, shooting worried glances between us during meals. I tried reaching out to Dylan, hoping that news of the pregnancy might change his mind about us, but his responses were increasingly curt. I can't help you with this, he finally texted. I'm seeing someone else now. The betrayal was complete. I'd destroyed my marriage for a man who'd discarded me the moment things became inconvenient. A week later, Marilyn showed up at our door unannounced. I was home alone, having called in sick to work. Morning sickness had been brutal. We need to talk, she said, pushing past me into the living room. Marilyn, I'm not feeling well. I know about the pregnancy. My blood turned cold. Graham told you. My son tells me everything eventually. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I don't understand. Are you planning to pass off another man's child as Graham's? Because if you are, I'll make sure he knows the truth. The baby might be Graham's. Might be isn't good enough. My son deserves better than a wife who can't even tell him whose child she's carrying. What do you want from me? I want you to do the right thing for once. Get a paternity test. Stop lying to my son. And if that baby isn't his, I want you to leave. Leave? This is my home. Chloe is my daughter. Is she? Because from what I've seen, you've been more concerned with playing games with the pool boy than being a mother. The accusation stung because it held a grain of truth. I'd been so caught up in Dylan's attention that I'd neglected the family I already had. That night, Graham came home with an envelope from his lawyer. What's this? I asked, though I dreaded the answer. Separation papers. I'm filing for legal separation, pending the results of a paternity test. Graham, please. I've already spoken to my attorney. If the child is mine, we'll discuss reconciliation and custody. If it's not, he shrugged, then I guess we'll know where we stand. You can't just throw away 8 years of marriage. I'm not throwing anything away, Seraphina. You already did that. He handed me the envelope with steady hands, but I could see the pain in his eyes. You have 48 hours to find somewhere else to stay while we sort this out legally. I won't have Chloe exposed to any more of this drama. You're kicking me out. I'm pregnant and you're making me homeless. You made your choices. Now you get to live with the consequences. As I stared at the legal documents, the full weight of my actions finally hit me. I'd traded my marriage, my home, and my family's stability for a few weeks of attention from a man who'd already moved on to someone else. And now I was truly alone. The motel room smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. I'd been living there for 3 days, surviving on takeout and the dwindling balance in my personal checking account. Graham had frozen our joint accounts, pending the legal proceedings, leaving me with just enough money for basic necessities. My sister Joanna had driven down from Sacramento to help me pack, though her support felt strained. "I still think Graham's being harsh," she said, folding my clothes into a suitcase. "Kicking out his pregnant wife makes him look like the bad guy." "Does it?" I asked bitterly. "Because everyone else seems to think I got what I deserved." The truth was, public opinion had turned decisively against me. Word of the affair had spread through our social circle like wildfire, and the responses had been brutal. Former friends had unfriended me on social media, neighbors avoided eye contact, and even Dr. Peterson had suggested I might want to look for work elsewhere. "People love to judge," Joanna said loyally, but I could hear the doubt in her voice. My phone buzzed with a text from Graham's lawyer. "Paternity test scheduled for tomorrow at 2 p.m. Please confirm your attendance." The appointment felt like a death sentence. In 24 hours, I'd know whether the child I was carrying belonged to my husband or to a man who'd already made it clear he wanted nothing to do with me. That evening, I tried calling Dylan one last time. "Seraphina, I told you not to contact me anymore," he said, his voice cold. "I just need to know. If the baby is yours, will you step up? Will you take responsibility? Look, what happened between us was fun, but I'm not ready to be a father, especially not with someone else's wife. I'm not someone else's wife anymore. Graham threw me out. That's not my problem. I never promised you anything." The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in the dim motel lighting. He was right. He'd never promised me anything. I'd built up our relationship in my mind, imagining romance and devotion where there had only been casual flirtation and opportunistic sex. The next morning, I arrived at the medical lab to find Graham already there, sitting in the waiting room with his brother Derek. They looked up when I entered, but neither acknowledged me. "Mrs. Quayle?" A technician called my name. "We're ready for you." The blood draw was quick and clinical. The technician explained that results would be available in 48 to 72 hours, and that both parties would be notified simultaneously. As I left the lab, Derek caught up with me in the parking lot. "Seraphina, wait." I turned, surprised. Derek had barely spoken to me since the barbecue confrontation. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand what you've done to my brother." "I think I understand perfectly." "No, you don't. Graham hasn't slept in weeks. He's lost 15 pounds. Yesterday, Chloe asked me why Daddy cries in the shower. The image hit me like a physical blow. He cries? What did you expect? The man loved you completely. He would have done anything for you, given you anything you wanted. And you threw it away for what? A few compliments from a kid who cleans pools. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? Did you think you could have your cake and eat it too? Keep Graham as the stable provider while you played around with your boy toy? That's not fair." "Fair?" Derek's voice rose. "You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that Chloe blames herself for mommy and daddy fighting? Is it fair that Graham questions whether he was ever good enough for you? Is it fair that our family is destroyed because you were bored?" I had no answer. Every defense I'd constructed crumbled under the weight of Derek's accusations. 2 days later, the results arrived via email. I was sitting in my motel room when my phone chimed with the notification. With shaking hands, I opened the message. The baby was Graham's. Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by hope. This changed everything. Graham would have to take me back now. We could rebuild our marriage, put this whole nightmare behind us. I called him immediately. "Graham, did you get the results?" "Yes." "So you know the baby is yours. We can work this out now, right? I can come home?" The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. "Graham? The baby being mine doesn't change what you did, Seraphina. But it proves I wasn't completely unfaithful. It proves our marriage still means something. Does it? Because from where I'm sitting, it just proves you were sleeping with both of us around the same time. That's not exactly the vindication you think it is. I made a mistake. You made a series of choices. You chose to start texting him. You chose to meet him secretly. You chose to send him photos. You chose to sleep with him. Those weren't mistakes. They were decisions. People make bad decisions when they're unhappy. Were you unhappy, Seraphina? Because I thought we had a good life. I thought we were building something together. Apparently I was wrong. We can build it again. No, we can't. The finality in his voice terrified me. Graham, please. I'm carrying your child. Doesn't that mean anything? It means I'll support my child financially and be involved in their life. It doesn't mean I'm taking you back. You can't just abandon your pregnant wife. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm protecting myself and Chloe from further damage. What about what people will say? What about your reputation? Graham laughed bitterly. My reputation? Seraphina, everyone already knows what happened. They know you had an affair. They know I threw you out. They know the pool boy dumped you when things got complicated. My reputation is that of a man who stood up for himself when his wife betrayed him. I can live with that. The conversation ended with Graham informing me that divorce papers would be filed within the week. I would receive child support for both Chloe and the new baby, but custody would be heavily weighted in his favor given my demonstrated instability. That evening, I sat in my motel room scrolling through social media, watching my former life play out without me. Graham had posted a photo of him and Chloe at a father-daughter dance, both of them smiling. The comments were full of support for him and thinly veiled criticism of me. So proud of you for staying strong, one friend had written. Chloe is lucky to have such a devoted father, wrote another. Some people don't know what they have until they lose it, added a third. My phone buzzed with a final text from Dylan. Heard about the paternity test. Glad it worked out for you. Please don't contact me again. I stared at the message until the words blurred through my tears. He was glad it had worked out for me, as if being homeless, jobless, and divorced was some kind of victory. 3 months later, I was living in a small apartment across town, working part-time at a different medical clinic, and preparing for the birth of a child whose father wanted nothing to do with me. Graham had been true to his word. He provided financial support and would be involved in the baby's life, but our marriage was over. Chloe visited me every other weekend, but the easy closeness we'd once shared was gone. She was polite but distant, clearly torn between loyalty to her father and love for her mother. Daddy says you made bad choices, she told me one Saturday afternoon as we colored at my small kitchen table. Daddy's right, I admitted. I made very bad choices. Do you wish you could take them back? The question hung in the air between us. Did I wish I could take it back? The affair, the lies, the destruction of everything I'd once held dear. Yes, baby, I wish I could take it all back. But wishing couldn't undo the damage. Wishing couldn't restore the trust I'd shattered or repair the family I'd broken. Wishing couldn't bring back the life I'd thrown away for a few weeks, a feeling desired by a man who'd never truly cared about me at all. As I sat in my empty apartment that evening, feeling the baby kick inside me, I finally understood the true cost of my choices. I hadn't just lost my husband. I'd lost my home, my family, my friends, and my reputation. I'd traded everything real and lasting for something that had been nothing more than an illusion. Graham had won not through revenge or cruelty, but simply by refusing to accept my betrayal. He'd protected himself and our daughter by setting boundaries and sticking to them. He'd shown me that actions have consequences and that some mistakes can't be undone with apologies and promises to change. The pool guy had moved on to his next conquest. My husband had moved on to his new life, and I was left alone with the wreckage of everything I'd destroyed, finally understanding that I had no one to blame but myself.